gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. This should be a pretty interesting one. They had the CEO, president of Stellantis, in the hot seat in committee here. This is a industry committee investigation, and it goes deep. Anyways, like the Stellantis guys just seem to be allowed to steal, I think it's $600 million they were lent, and they're taking it all to invest it somewhere else. They never showed the contract. That was little Francois Philippe Champagne when he was the industry minister, letting that one happen. Him and Trudeau, I'm sure Carney was the one advising it. They're all like these bankers, oh my goodness, Goldman Sachs men. Come on, give me a break. Anyways, this is a very interesting piece coming up, I'm quite certain. So let's get straight into it. Let's go.
Jeff Hines, who is representing Stellantis here today. Mr. Hines, I believe you know that you've got upwards of 5 minutes to provide introductory remarks, followed by what will be a line of questioning. There's a pre-allotted amount of time to the recognized political parties around the table that we will follow. So with that, we're going to get right into it. Mr. Hines, the floor is yours of upwards of 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. I just want to take a few minutes with an opening statement, then happy to take the questions that are necessary. Mr. Chair, honorable members of the committee, thanks again for the opportunity to appear before you today. And a little background for Stellantis. We've been a proud part of Canada's automotive story for more than a century. This is, in fact, our 100-year anniversary here in Canada. We were born in Windsor on June 17th, 1925. Just 11 days after the Chrysler Corporation was formed in the U.S. And since that time, our company, the variations of Stellantis, has directly and indirectly, created tens of thousands of jobs, supported the Canadian economy from coast to coast to coast, built innovative, dependable vehicles that keep Canadians moving every single day. Since 2022, and more recently, we've announced $8.6 billion of Canadian-specific investments. Nearly all of those projects are either complete or well underway. They include the Nexstar Energy battery facility in Windsor, major upgrades to the Windsor assembly plant, and enhanced R&D capacity as well, along with the $1 billion earmarked for the Brampton assembly plant retool. Today, Stellantis employs approximately 9,000 Canadians across our manufacturing plants, our research and development center, and our business and distribution operations nationwide. Over the past 100 years, we built more than 25 million vehicles in Canada and sold them through a network of our more than 444 dealerships today. We're also proud to be one of the only 3 automakers in Canada that build more vehicles in Canada than we sell here. That distinction reflects our deep commitment to this country and to its role in our North American manufacturing. We've had strong, productive relationships with our labor unions, all levels of government, and certainly we're grateful for that partnership and the support extended to us during pivotal moments in our history. That collaboration has been instrumental in ensuring that Canada remains a key part of Stellantis's global strategy. To our dedicated employees and their families in Brampton, I want to say this directly to you for those watching, that the recent decisions on the Brampton plant clearly not taken lightly, and we recognize the impact that these decisions have had, not only on you, but the community and the families involved. We have robust supports in place to help mitigate the current situation and the effects, and we are offering transfer opportunities at other Stellantis facilities wherever possible and wherever that makes sense for the employee or their family. And overall, our priority remains the same: long-term stability of our Canadian workforce. And while the economic landscape has certainly changed and it's shifted and certainly challenging today, the importance of Canada to Stellantis has not. We remain deeply invested in the future of Canadian manufacturing and innovation. Since 2022, we've added 600 highly skilled engineering jobs at our Research and Development Center. And by early 26, we'll add approximately 1,500 additional new Canadian jobs to our Windsor assembly plant as well. And at the same time, we continue to work constructively with our government partners, stakeholders, our union, as we identify new opportunities and potential new products for Brampton. And as someone who's had the privilege of leading Stellantis Canada, I can tell you this, our success as a company is tied directly to Canada's success. It's not just a market to us, it's a home. It's built by communities, it's built by our dealers, it's built by our employees, and all the communities that those folks represent. And they've represented us for generations. The auto industry has faced challenges before, and each time it's adapted, it's persevered, and it's emerged stronger. And I'm confident that the Canadian auto manufacturing business can do so once again. And in closing, Mr. Chair, I just want to emphasize 3 key points that I think are important as we move forward. Number one, for more than 100 years, Stellantis has helped shape Canada's automotive industry. And that history gives us pride, it gives us purpose, and we want to look forward to the next chapter of building Canadian innovation, Canadian manufacturing, and growth across Canada. Second, with billions of dollars invested, thousands of new jobs underway, major projects that are nearing completion, we are committed to driving lasting economic value and reinforcing Canada's role in the global automotive supply chain. And third and last, we remain fully engaged, working with government, with labor, and with our community partners, working together to ensure a sustainable, competitive future for our Canadian manufacturing, and more importantly, the people that power it. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and I look forward to the committee's questions.
Very much. Madame Dandreau, I will begin 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hines, for being with us today. And of course, you are the president of Stellantis Canada, and you were invited to discuss the quite shocking news that Canada received just a few weeks ago that your company was moving the production of the Jeep Compass facility to Illinois in the United States out of Brampton, which laid off 3,000 workers and, of course, impacted 3,000 families there. And obviously, of course, in that announcement, your company announced a $13 billion investment in the United States that will create 5,000 direct jobs and countless more indirect American jobs. So very concerning, especially in light of the very considerable subsidy deals you signed with the Liberal government, among others. And so I would like to ask you about those contracts, sir. Just off the top, did any of these agreements that you signed with the Liberal government come with the jobs guarantees that Stellantis would maintain its employment footprint in Canada?
Well, what I can tell you is this, is that we are committed to our employees at Brampton, our employees in Canada. The dynamics of the contract and the contract signed, some of that obviously is going to remain confidential as the nature of those contracts are. But we are committed to maintaining the workforce in Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. No, I appreciate that, but I don't believe I'm asking you to reveal anything that's commercially sensitive. I'm just asking if you agreed to take up to, well, I can break it down as well, but up to about $16.5 billion from the taxpayer, many of that from agreements with the Liberal government in exchange for, among other things, a Canada-wide jobs guarantee. I don't believe that that's commercially sensitive.
Well, what we have done is, and I think it's clear, and this is an important point, I think, for the committee, is the plant is not closed. The workers remain laid off, and our commitment to those workers will remain. And what we are working through is potential possibilities for that plant to get those workers back to work in a way that's commercially viable.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. But I do believe, from what we've understood from previous testimony on Monday, that while you are saying that publicly, that you do have plans, I do believe that that is in fact contingent on Canada getting an auto sector deal. And unfortunately, we haven't had any commitment from the Liberal government that an auto deal is imminent or forthcoming, or really it just hasn't been communicated that that's something that's on the near horizon. So my understanding is there are no plans for Brampton unless there is an auto deal, and a good auto deal for Canada. Is that not the case?
Well, we certainly need some clarity from the trade situation that we have today. It's fluid, as you saw recent announcements over the last week. It's obviously a very fluid situation. But what we need, and I think the industry needs collectively, is clearly some stability in trade conversations so we can adjust and invest accordingly.
Right, but our understanding is the Trump administration is very determined on these tariffs, and in fact, they've stated, and I'll paraphrase, but my takeaway was that they're looking to bleed Canada's auto sector dry, and we are bleeding a lot of auto jobs, and that seems to be their mission. And again, we aren't receiving any confidence from the Liberal government that they're going to deliver an auto deal for Canadians imminently or on the near horizon. So, if all things being equal, and your situation that you're in today remains the same, a year from now, will that Brampton plant be operational?
I think I can't speculate on that hypothetical. We certainly want to work with both sides of the government to come to a solution that maintains jobs and does the best that we can to keep Canadian jobs and keep Canadian manufacturing and keep our folks at Brampton working with a long-term sustainable operation.
Thank you.
We certainly want.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hines. I'm just going to run through some of the funding commitments that came from the Liberal government that you're currently receiving. So over the past 3 years, Stellantis has received deals worth about $1 billion in direct capital grants to modernize and retool your Windsor and Brampton facilities for electric vehicles and hybrid production. $529 million of that commitment was from the federal government, from the Strategic Innovation Fund, and to my knowledge, over $105 million has already flowed to your company. And further to that, the Liberal government also committed to provide you support of up to $500 million through the SIF fund as well for capital expenditures for your Nexstar Energy battery plant in Windsor, and $268 million of that has flowed. So within those agreements, again, I'll ask you again, was there a Canada-wide jobs guarantee?
There certainly was every effort made to make sure that all of those investments are working. And I'll just go back to what I said originally, is that we have had over 1,000 jobs done at our Nexstar Energy plant. We have added and are in the process of adding 1,500 additional jobs at Windsor. And the folks at Brampton remain as part of our employment and employees, and we want to continue that. And that's what we're trying to do. And certainly want to work with our union colleagues in the government to make sure we can do that.
Thank you. And I'll ask you again about the Nexstar Energy plant on the other subsidy agreement that came from the Liberal government in partnership with the government from Ontario. And that was to be up to $15 billion. In that agreement, sir, was there a Canada-wide jobs guarantee? I'm pretty keen on this, so I'll ask you again.
And I would reiterate that we continue to have employment there. It's 1,000 employees today, with plans to add additional workers as the plant expands and the volume of what we do at that plant expands. So certainly have employees there today and more to come.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. But I am a bit concerned because, again, I don't believe that this is commercially sensitive information of whether or not you committed with up to $16.5 billion of taxpayer funding and subsidies from the Liberal government and others. I don't believe it's commercially sensitive to ask and for you to say whether within any of those agreements, any of those multiple agreements, the Liberal government required a Canada-wide jobs guarantee in exchange for that considerable level of taxpayer funding. So I am concerned that you're not saying, which to me seems like there wasn't.
So we continue to have jobs and we expand that plant. We continue to expand at our Windsor plant as well. We certainly appreciate all the support that we've gotten from both the provincial and the federal government. But certainly this is also an unusual time. And over the last 9 months especially, certainly more fluid than any of us expected when those contracts were completed.
Thank you, Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Madame Dancho. Madame O'Rourke, 6 minutes.
Chair Carr. So, Mr. Hines, I certainly hope you're able to keep the commitments that you made in your opening statements for Canada and to the auto workers. You understand at this really challenging time when the government is standing with our auto sector and standing with our auto workers, that news that you are moving the Jeep Compass from Brampton to Illinois, making substantial investments in the United States, is really challenging as we try to fortify our auto sector in light of these unjustified and punishing U.S. tariffs. And I'm going to suggest, sir, that Stellantis' actions are contributing to this instability. And I'm going to assume you don't treat all your contractual obligations this way, despite market changes. A contract's a contract. So you, sir, are on the hook for millions of dollars, and I'd like to know how this is affecting your business decisions.
A few things I would say there, and I think that's a lot to digest. Number one, what we would like to get to is some clarity on the current economic and trade situation. As you can imagine, not a Stellantis only problem, and maybe not an auto industry only problem. Extremely difficult to make investment decisions given the current environment that we're all living in today. And so the first thing we'd like to get to is some level of clarity, whether that's through CUSMA, USMCA, but something that's going to get us to some level of understanding what the current trade environment is going to be so we can make the right investment decisions to get back on track here in Canada.
Well, that's certainly the objective of the Government of Canada as well. I'm sure you would agree. that we want to work with our industry partners and the auto workers to reach that stability, and that every effort is being made to do that. I just want to shift to Brampton for a moment. So while the addition of the third shift in Brampton doesn't really release you from any of the contractual obligations, it is welcome. So I would be curious to know, what are those plans for Brampton?
So the plans for Brampton, as you can imagine, a little commercially sensitive, something we're not going to discuss publicly. But I can tell you that I have seen a couple different potential options for the plant at Brampton. I think they both make sense for Canada. And we look forward to, when we get some stability to the current environment, I think it could do good things for the plant and good things for our customers across Canada.
How am I on time?
You got 3.5 minutes.
Okay. So I am curious to know whether you worked with government prior to making this announcement, whether there was consultation with Unifor or the auto workers, and how did you arrive at this surprising conclusion?
We've had consistent conversation with a lot of stakeholders over the past 9 months. Certainly, as some of the communication has gone, some commercially sensitive that we were unable to share, some that we did share, but we have had communication with all levels of government, especially over the last 9 months, where I would say some of our challenge was with the direct conversation we had with our Brampton workforce. A difficult message clearly to deliver, and I'm sure even harder to receive when we made that announcement a few weeks back. So certainly a lot of empathy for our workers in that situation. But we did have numerous conversations through all levels of government over the last 6 to 9 months.
Great. And my last question, Mr. Hines. Clearly, everyone's been rocked by these unfair, unjustified tariffs from the United States over the last 9 months. But going back in history, going back 5 years, how would you describe the soundness of these investments because of the quality of our workforce, because the quality of Canadian automakers? So these investments, would you say they were in line with global trends, that they were contributing to the efficiency of the production facilities?
I would say they're a large part of the former FCA, going back 5 years ago, now Stellantis, a large part of our operations. Great workforce across our Canadian footprint, and they were a big part of our success over the last 5 years. And as I said, much longer than that. So a certain element of Canada that's been a great big part of our collective business over many years.
30 seconds. Do you have an idea of the timeline when we will be able to hear what's next for Brampton, to give those families some hope?
I wish I could give a definitive timeline, but as you can imagine, the situation today is so fluid, and the uncertainty in regards to our current trade situation and our current economic environment, I cannot give a timeline when that would happen. I do know this: the sooner we can come to some clarity on the trade situation and the current economic environment that we're all living in, the sooner we can make those announcements, and the sooner we can work with that plan with our union colleagues, our workers at Brampton, and the federal government as well.
I certainly hope that we can count on you to stay in Canada, sir, and to continue to create opportunities for auto workers.
Thanks. See you, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Santamarie.
Borelli, 5 minutes is yours.
Chair, before I begin my line of questioning, I'd like to state something on record. Hours before the announcement, the official announcement that Stellantis would move production from the Brampton plant to Illinois, the company made robocalls to their employees and informing them that they'd be laid off. These employees that grew that business, that stood by your company, were treated in one of the most shockingly inhumane ways I have ever heard. So for the benefit of this committee and for the benefit of my colleagues across the table, I would like to ask for unanimous consent to play the robocall that was sent to the employees in Brampton.
So, Ms. Borelli, I'll stop the clock for a moment. The challenge with this is that unless you've got appropriate translation that's been provided in advance and an opportunity for members to hear, the video or the audio that you're referencing, it makes it quite challenging. I have to uphold respect for both official languages first and foremost. I'm not sure that the quality of that audio, without having tested it, is going to be something that we can work with. So what I might recommend is that should that be of importance to you moving forward, it's a conversation that you can have with our colleagues around the table, and if there is agreement to move forward with it, then we would take the necessary steps in order to ensure that it was brought to the quality that's necessary. Is this on a point of order, Madame Dancho?
Yes, we do have a translated copy of the transcript, so we can provide that to the committee members right now. And again, I think that this is to make the point that the president hear what the workers had to hear, Mr. Chair. And it's a fairly simple audio. I think that the workers would appreciate the president knowing, and the members of this committee knowing, what was said to them when they were laid off, when 3,000 families heard that news. So I would just ask you to reconsider. We have the French transcript that we can provide to everyone, and I do think it would be right by workers to ensure this is on the record.
Just give me 1 minute to confer with the clerk. It's an unusual request. That in and of itself doesn't mean that I have to close the door on it, but I need to confer. Just give me a minute, okay, Ms. Burley? Thank you. Seen or the recorded transcript and translation to French. Having said that, you've asked to seek unanimous consent. So should it be the will of the committee, I'll cede to the will of the committee. My own view, as just mentioned, is that I have some challenges with this. However, as I said, granted that you've sought that unanimous consent, I will look around the table. It's a little bit unconventional, and Ms. Borelli, this is going to eat into your line of questioning. I can't give you your time back. I'm going to pause here just for a moment in the event that a member wishes to speak to this. Again, this is very unconventional. However, in the spirit of collaboration, I'm willing to grant some time here. Did you want to speak
to this? Yeah, I'll
just
just speak to this. I think I'd be happy as a member of this committee to have the transcript read into the record. I think that's an appropriate thing to do.
Read into the record or played into?
Read into the record.
So you're not giving unanimous consent for it to be played?
No.
Okay, well then unanimous consent has not been given, in which case, Ms. Borelli, I'm going to afford you a moment to ask a question, and I'll try to be reasonable here.
It's a minute of her time.
So, sorry, are you on a point of order, Madame Dancho?
Sure,
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
My understanding, Mr. Chair, I think she only did less than a minute of her time, and we've been on this UC thing since then. So she should have about 4 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to give a little bit of time here. Yeah, this is not a legitimate point of order. I have entertained this to try to be reasonable. Ms. Borelli, begin with your line of questioning. Okay, I'm not going to cut you off at any particular moment that's not reasonable. Just go ahead, but I can't grant you the entirety of it. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, going through this, we can pass around what the robocall said, but first in the robocall, they talk about the $13 billion they're going to invest in the states before they even tell the employees that they're cutting them off. They won't have their jobs. These are employees that have already been on layoff for 2 years and expecting to go back to work, and telling them that they're indefinitely laid off now. So I do have some questions in addition to that. Mr. Hines, is it common practice for your company to inform employees that they no longer have a future in your company by robocall?
Well, first off, I would say there is still a future, and there is still potential, and there is still opportunity for all of our employees at Brampton. In the short term, making all the opportunities and all the available additional jobs at Windsor, if that fits for that family or that employee that is currently laid off at Brampton. We are working with our union colleagues to extend benefits to those folks for a longer period of time than was originally provided to in the contract. We want to try to take care of those employees, but certainly I can understand and appreciate the frustration of the employees and of yourself and how it was done. Certainly a challenging message at the very least, and we want to try to do what we can for those employees moving forward.
So, Mr. Hines, unemployment benefits are meant for a short term. Years and years of unemployment benefits do not pay the mortgage and do not put food on the table. So I hope those workers in Brampton get back to work really fast. In addition, for 100 years, workers in Windsor have depended on the work available at the assembly plant that provides stable income for my community. 24,000 workers in my community depend on the auto industry for their jobs that are safe and provide well for their families. This would include the third shift that was recently added to your plant. Will you ensure workers in the Windsor area that their jobs are secure? Do you intend to maintain your footprint in Windsor and in Canada?
That is fully our intention, And we're excited to bring on 1,500 new workers. We're excited to bring the capacity of that plant to 200, 210, 220,000 units that we're going to build in Canada each and every year. So we're excited about getting those employees and getting that plant building even more than they do today.
I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you. You promised my community that the Nexstar battery plant would create 2,500 direct jobs. Is that still the number? When will you reach that number of employment at that plant?
As I mentioned before, we're at roughly 1,000 today. It continues to grow. I think the market dynamics across the North America market as well as Canada have shifted a little bit, and I think that's something we're taking into account. But our plans are continue to expand at Nexstar and expand some of the capability at the plant and continue our progress there.
That's good to hear, but I believe you had a commitment to provide 2,500 jobs within a year of opening the plant. Is that not true?
I don't have the timing in front of me, so I cannot answer that question if that was a year from the time that it opened. My apologies. I do know that we continue to expand, and as I said, we want to continue to expand, and our investment there is collective investment is large, and we want to make sure that it continues.
Thank you so much.
Does she have one more? Go ahead. Finish your question.
If you have another question.
So you're telling me that Canadians can trust that you're going to be finding a new product to bring to Brampton and that you're going to continue your footprint across Canada and grow your factories in Brampton and in Windsor.
And I certainly have stated that. And the first step in adding jobs across Canada is the 1,500 that are coming to Windsor. That's ongoing. We're excited about that. But I will be clear that we need the market dynamics to settle down. We need some consistency in our trade policy moving forward. And that's what we really need is step one, so we can do all of the things and continue what you just mentioned. But we are adding 1,500 jobs, and we're very excited about that and can't wait to get going.
My community's depending on you keeping your word. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Borelli. Mr. Erskine-Smith, 5 minutes.
Thanks, Chair. You mentioned in your opening remarks, you said, I think I got it right, it's not just a market, it's a home. That's what you said when you were talking about Canada. Now, you've been a little bit high level, a little bit vague. You talked about economic landscapes changed, unusual time, fluid situation. Maybe you can be a bit more specific. Tell me about the market decision to abandon thousands of workers in your home at the worst possible time when our auto sector is under attack. Walk me through that in greater detail.
Well, let me digest that for a second. Certainly a decision that was not taken lightly by anyone at Stellantis or anyone locally here in Canada. Certainly a challenging decision to make. But the current tariff situation, the unknowns that the current market has given not only Stellantis, and not just auto manufacturing, but the historic partnerships that we've had for products that we make are certainly challenged in today's environment. And that is primarily what led us to make some of the decisions that we had to make.
And I gotta jump in there because as of February 2025, the retooling is paused, and your company makes a public statement to say this does not change our previously announced investment plans for Brampton. So, less than a year later, things have drastically changed, and you've walked away from that commitment. Can you explain that?
Certainly. And what happened between then and the time that we had our announcement is the economic uncertainty of our trade policy today. And that's primarily number one. We certainly need the U.S.
No, you've been very clear. You've been very clear. So it's previously in answer to a block member's question, you said, lots of different factors, but it's the tariffs. Let's be honest with ourselves. It's the tariffs. So
certainly a large part.
100%. So can you be clear? Canada's your home. You said, I think you said you're a proud part of Canada's automotive story. Tell me what you think about the tariffs.
I think
President Trump rescind the tariffs? Should he stop his attacks on Canada? Are the tariffs against our auto sector a bad idea?
I would say this. I think from our perspective, clarity on trade policy helps us invest in the short term, midterm, and long term.
Clarity for a moment, but forget about clarity for a moment. You've said you're a proud part of Canada's automotive story. You want to be a big part of our future. You say Canada is your home. It's not just a market. It should be easy to say tariffs on Canada's auto sector is a terrible idea. Can you say it with me?
What I will say is my own words, not yours, if I could be so kind to say my own. And if you'd allow me to continue, I do think Canada is our home. We have been here 100 years. We are continuing to invest in Canada and want to continue to do so. But certainly, we want a policy that works for our manufacturing footprint in Canada so we can continue to grow and continue to expand.
Let's talk about the policy that would support workers in Brampton. You said you're committed to employees at Brampton. You said that just today. So in answer to other questions, you said you've seen a couple of options. You can't disclose with any specificity. Give me a timeline. When can workers expect you to honor your commitments?
It goes back to when we have economic certainty, when we have trade certainty, it certainly allows us to make an informed decision. Right now, we don't have that trade certainty, and it's not just a Stellantis concern.
Sounds like the commitment is contingent on something entirely out of your control. But it doesn't sound like a firm commitment at all. Now, hundreds of millions of federal dollars, before we even talk about provincial dollars in Ontario, but hundreds of millions of federal dollars have gone committed to that Brampton facility. Specifically, over $100 million has actually flowed. So what do you see as your obligations to the Canadian taxpayer and to the public?
Clearly appreciative of all the support we've gotten from the Canadian government, both provincially and federally. And our idea, our plan, our strategy would be...
Your obligation is appreciation? No, what do you see as your obligation to the Brampton facility based on taxpayer dollars? I don't care if you appreciate it. What's your obligation?
Well, we want to make sure that we provide for those employees. And that's what I mentioned earlier, that we want to give them first chance to go to Windsor. That's a new employment opportunity that they could take advantage of. In the short term, while we have such uncertainty today, we want to try to continue the benefits they've accumulated. No, it's not the same as they would have at their Windsor opportunity, but we want to try to take care of the employees as best we can. But we need some economic certainty in order to make those decisions.
As we wait for economic certainty, can we expect you to repay the money?
We're certainly committed to helping our employees as best we can. And we want to continue with all of the commitments that we've made. And it starts with getting something that works in a trade so we can continue to expand at Brampton and continue the other expansion that I mentioned earlier.
So what I have heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I have heard is Canada's your home, but you're abandoning thousands of workers. What I've heard is you've accepted hundreds of millions of dollars in commitments, including over $100 million specifically that's flowed for Brampton, but you have no intention of honoring your commitments to workers there, except with some vague possibility of jobs once you get economic certainty. And you won't say that tariffs on the auto sector here in Canada is a bad idea.
It's certainly economically challenging, no doubt. And again, it's not just Stellantis. I think it's the industry and industry in total. We certainly need to come to some resolution sooner rather than later. And we do want to make sure that we help in our employees and talk about the commitments that we made to them and continue that with the potential of additional products that, in my mind, could work better than the previous plan.
Thanks.
Merci. Thank you, Mr. Samari. Just for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hines, for your testimony here at committee today. As you can see, we're very concerned about the 3,000 workers that received that robocall that are finding themselves on an extended layoff with no certainty as to when they're going to be returning to work. And certainly some of the phrases that you've used continually in your remarks and in your responses have been market dynamics, unknowns, uncertainty. Can you help me understand a little bit what you mean by that? I mean, you've identified trade tariffs that are ongoing with the United States challenges, but can you identify any other unknowns or market dynamics?
Those are the number one challenge that we have to overcome today is to come to some level of agreement. And that will give us some certainty. We need something in Brampton that's commercially viable. We want to have something in Brampton that works for Canada and for Canadian customers. But we also need it to work for customers outside of Canada today as well. So that's number one. And if we can get that and get to some level of agreement, we all think that there's great opportunity for our Brampton employees to get back to work.
Okay. You also, a company like Stellantis doesn't make a decision overnight to spend $13 billion on a plant in Illinois and to temporarily abandon the Brampton facility. You've obviously been in touch and communicating with Unifor and also the government of Canada. What date did those discussions begin of the possible extended closure?
So I won't get into specifics because I think some of those are, again, commercially, I think important for us. But I would say this, is we've had conversation over the last 9 months and certainly some of the challenges. Our expectation, I think, over the last 9 months that we'd be in a better spot than we are today from an agreement.
Mr. Hines, some of these discussions have been ongoing with the government of Canada for the past 9 months that the Brampton plant would continue to remain dormant.
No, the conversation with the government has been consistent over the past 9 months in regards to the challenges that the current tariff situation brings to us to go forward. As you can imagine, a large company like Stellantis, we look at a lot of different options, a lot of different ways to go, a lot of things that are...
Our government, you've been communicating regularly with our government over the past 9 months about some of the challenges that you're facing and the options that you're looking at.
Yes, we have.
Okay,
yes,
thank you. So some of the previous witnesses that we've had at committee here for this study have indicated that the uncertainty, one of the uncertainties that you're probably talking about is the fact that our EV mandate has only been paused. I sit on our Conservative Auto Caucus, and we've had presentation from industry there before, and they've said that that mandate has created a real challenge for you as manufacturers. How much did that play into your decision that President Trump removed that mandate, and here you're still faced with that mandate?
Excellent question. A few comments as I digest your question. Number one is we are one of, if not the only manufacturer that builds an electric vehicle in Canada. We also build traditional ICE vehicles here as well. What we believe is freedom of choice for the customer. So we do support the pause on the ZEV mandate. We think customers need to be able to choose what they like and choose what they want.
Doesn't the pause just create uncertainty for you?
That said, we build electric vehicles here in Canada. We build ICE vehicles here in Canada. And we want to give our customers across Canada the choice that they want to make.
We've heard from previous testimony that demand has dropped to 8%. Is that consistent with your sales?
That is consistent.
Okay.
That is consistent.
Some have used the word tanked. So if you had a choice today based on what the customer and the consumer is asking for, what kind of vehicle would you be building?
what we want to build for the Canadian customer is something that provides great value, great dependability, and fits what their lifestyle needs, and something that works across all of Canada.
Is that a gas-powered vehicle?
It could be a gas-powered vehicle. It very well could be. And as you mentioned before, 90% plus today are gas-powered vehicles, and that's the vast, vast majority of the market today.
From my knowledge, you could have sold a lot more Challenger 170s had you built them.
Beautiful product. Beautiful product.
How much time? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Falk. Ms. Sadhu, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a Bramptonian and a Member of Parliament from Brampton South, I'm deeply disturbed by the Stellantis decision, Mr. Hines. When you said that you're committed to Canada, you're committed to Canadians as well. And through you, Mr. Chair, I would ask Mr. Hines to share what he has to say to my Bramptonians, which they are losing their jobs, auto works, and their families. What do you want to say when you said you are committed to Canada and you're committed to your home?
So I would say directly to the Brampton employees, as number one is certainly a challenging message to deliver, and even harder probably to receive, for sure. We want to, A, offer them employment opportunities. They get first choice at these additional Windsor jobs. That may work for some, may not work for some, but we would offer that to them directly to be their first choice. Secondly, in the short term, providing additional benefits and extending the benefits they've received today, which clearly, from your comments earlier from the committee, we want to make sure that we do that. And then the last thing that I would say to them is we want to continue to build vehicles in Brampton, and we want to bring something that's going to work, but we need an environment that allows us to do that.
So will Stellantis commit to maintaining a manufacturer presence in Brampton? Just want to know, when you're asking the relocating, are you paying for relocation or supporting the workers for new role? Do you know that it's not right, Mr. Hines, when you're asking for relocation? So 3,000 workers who are there in the plant day in and day out, they work hard for your plant. Is that fair for them?
Certainly challenging, and certainly something that may not work for all the employees that are there. But at the same time, if that does work, we're working with our union colleagues to work on what does a relocation for one of the Brampton employees look like, and how do we work, and how can we make that work for them? But clearly a challenging time for our Brampton workers.
At the last, I want to say, Mr. Hines, you should honor those Bramptonian auto workers who built your company's reputation. Thank you, and I want to pass over my time to Mr. Bardesi.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that question, is there relocation assistance that is going to be made available by the company for those workers who seek to apply for those and get those jobs in Windsor?
It's something we're working through with our union colleagues, but we want to support them in their move. We certainly do. Okay.
How many transfer openings are currently available?
Right now, we've got interest from between 100 to 200 of the Brampton employees. And if they continue to expand, we'll make those jobs available as necessary.
Is the Brampton plant a productive plant in the Stellantis family of plants?
Historically, Brampton has been a great plant. It's been a very quality plant. And that's why we want to get to a situation where we can get back to building vehicles at Brampton under an environment and a trade policy that makes those vehicles viable. We want to get back to work. We want our employees back to work.
In her letter to Mr. Filosa, Minister Joly wrote, "It is imperative that you extend the workers' transition program agreed to with Unifor until at least 2027. What is the state of that workers' transition program?
We want to continue to support our workers in this challenging time, and we're working through that with our union colleagues as we speak, but certainly want to try to take care of the employees as best we can moving forward and support what you said.
I want to pick up on some of the questions of my colleague, Mr. Erskine-Smith, with relation to tariffs. I know you're not in this capacity anymore as Stellantis Canada president, but when you were in that capacity, did you advocate to U.S. officials in Canada around the necessity of getting to a deal that minimized tariffs?
that's been a consistent point of conversation with the government, and that's something that we need. I think the industry needs it. And I think it's, again, not just a Stellantis concern, but we need to come to an agreement so we can all move forward.
And more specifically, did you advocate or have you advocated to the U.S. ambassador to Canada that we need to have an expedited deal with minimal to no tariffs?
Yeah, we've had consistent conversation throughout all levels of government on that.
The witnesses with us here today, joining virtually from the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association, Flavio Volpe, who is the president, and then from Unifor, we have Lana Payne, the national president, and Angelo Di Caro, the director of research. Mr. Volpe, you can hear me okay? Excellent. Okay. I'm going to turn the floor over to you for your introductory remarks to lead us off, unless you
All right, gang, just briefly to explain, they had technical issues during that committee, and so they lost that witness, but they brought in 3 more, and these witnesses you will enjoy. Like, these witnesses are wanting to sound off on this deal. They're Canadians that care about Canadians, which you don't see a whole lot with the Liberal witnesses. Anyways, let's continue.
tell me you need another few minutes, in which case I can ask Ms. Payne if she's ready to go. It will be upwards of 5 minutes for you each, at which point we will begin a round of questioning with a pre-allotted amount of time to the recognized political parties around the table. Mr. Volpe, you're ready to go?
Happy to do it.
Okay, sir, the floor is yours for upwards of 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair and members. Always happy to be invited and to be part of the dialogue at this committee. The Canadian automotive business is anchored in assembly. Some commentators this week, including the Business Council of Canada, said, we can survive the current tariff war with the Americans because there'll always be a market for automotive parts. And we can give up our fight, if need be, on automotive assembly. I represent those suppliers, over 200 companies that manufacture 95% of the independent parts production in Canada. And I'll say that we completely disagree with that assessment. 50% of the parts that are made in Canadian factories go into Canadian vehicle assembly. And as we see the bad news over the last couple of weeks, where we have a discontinuation of production plans in both Brampton and Ingersoll, and in my opinion, probably a precursor to permanent closures there. As those assembly opportunities in Canada leave, so does the strength of the foundation for the Canadian auto parts sector. The parts sector has never asked for handouts, and there's a lot of dialogue in and around the automotive discussion to say, these are companies that always need to be supported by the Canadian government, and we're very disappointed frequently. The auto parts suppliers have always said, anchor assembly opportunities here, and we'll work out selling to our customers. In asking government to focus on assembly, we're also employing 100,000 Canadians to make parts, cars, and parts of cars, tools for cars, and systems that go into those cars. Those are Canadian entities or foreign entities, Canadian investments for those Canadian assemblies. Stellantis is a 100-year partner in Canadian automotive. Of course, started as Chrysler and Dodge and Daimler Chrysler and Fiat Chrysler, and now Stellantis. The best path forward for that 100-year partnership is to get another product in Brampton to also partner with that product in Windsor. We heavily supported, as the APMA, the EV investment in Brampton, in Windsor, and the R&D facility in Windsor, but we always said it has to include an absolute guarantee of assembly in Brampton. And we heard in the last session the angst with which the industry has faced this EV mandate. We've been very clear, front and center on realism, on setting the pace of EV adoption in Canada. most of you have seen me quoted widely as saying we were never going to make the 100% in 2035, but we should find the pace that worked for those companies that co-invested with us and maybe stretch those a little bit, but also to be realistic. The White House has taken aim at the sector. It's stripped incentives for American buyers and production subsidies for the companies that are in the space, and also hitting us with illegal and unprecedented tariffs, hoping, in the president's word, to end production of vehicles in Canada. I've spent 20 years in this space advocating for investment in Canadian automotive and in Ontario. I personally worked with Fiat pursuing investment in Canada in 2006 and 2007, then worked directly on the restructuring of Daimler Chrysler in the financial crisis of 2009 and 2010. The pursuit of new programs together with their great Canadian leader, Sergio Marchionne, from 2015 to 2020. And then we supported, again, the Nexstar Battery, Windsor Assembly Plant, Brampton Assembly investments in 2022 and 23. I don't get paid by OEMs. They're not our customers. I only work in the interest of the Canadian suppliers. Most of the time, our interests align with the OEMs. I'm not shy to say that when it works. And in those investments, those hard-fought investments over the last 3 years, I spent a lot of time advocating for the math in those investments and in those plants for suppliers and the 100,000 workers that we employ in those supplier firms. But I'm also not shy to say when it isn't true. The companies, Stellantis, and of course, General Motors, have choices that they made that favored the U.S. They're all big boys and girls. There are consequences to those decisions, and they need to defend them, both here at committee and in the public sphere, and to their workers. They can put product in those plants. They should put products in those plants. They're obligated to put products in those plants. The Canadian taxpayer base, including the companies that I represent that pay those taxes, that help to make those investments true, need those investments to be whole. And the people who show up at work every day and go home every day past television cameras, who didn't sign up to be politicians, but simply hardworking auto workers who have mouths to feed and bills to pay, have obligations that need to be met here. We're all invested over 100 years in a partnership that should be more reliable than 9 months of angst from the White House. And finally, personally on Brampton, I bought a 2005 Chrysler 300C, a 2006 Chrysler 300 SRT8, a 2010 Charger SRT8, a 2018 Challenger Demon, and a 2022 Challenger Demon 170. I drive the product, I buy the product that I said the best suppliers in the world and the best workers in the world put together. And so not just in my role as the president of the APMA, but as a consumer, I'd like those companies to keep up their end of the bargain or face the consequences.
Thank you very much, Mr. Volpe. Ms. Payne, the floor is yours for Ms. Payne, the floor is yours for upwards of 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, Chairman Carr and members of the committee. I really appreciate this invitation, and I also appreciate that you let Flavio go before me because I needed a little bit of time for my blood pressure to come down after your previous testimony. As you all know, my name is Lana Payne, and I'm the National President of Unifor, Canada's largest private sector union. We represent 320,000 workers in 25-plus sectors of the economy, including 40,000 in the auto sector, and we are Canada's auto union. As you know, this past week has delivered devastating news to tens of thousands of workers, both in Canadian assembly plants and across the supply chain. All of this, of course, is tied to Donald Trump's trade war. I'd like you to consider this. In the past 15 days, our union has received news that Quebec's PACCAR plant would reduce production at its St. Therese facility, just as new heavy truck tariffs are set to hit November 1st. This brings the total number of layoffs at that plant this year to 775. General Motors would end its Bright Drop electric delivery van program, leaving 1,100 workers indefinitely out of work, and as of today, there is no announced replacement vehicle program for Ingersoll, although we as a union are very committed to working with the company on a new product and future for that plant. Stellantis, as you all know, would move its promised and committed Jeep Compass vehicle program, which also includes the platform for that program, from Brampton to the United States, putting the future of this 3,000-worker facility at risk. This, of course, is in addition to the planned elimination of GM Oshawa's third shift scheduled for January, and as well numerous auto parts plant closures that we are also currently dealing with as a union. Let's not forget that what's happening in the auto sector is also happening in steel mills, in pulp, paper, and sawmills, in aluminum fabrication plants, and across furniture makers. Critical value-added industries in Canada, all suffering losses. It's brutal out there right now for working people. And I need this committee to understand this. Our industrial economy is in a major crisis, and we must do everything in our power to save it. Our entire trade strategy right now must be in defense of it and the more than 2 million Canadians whose lives and jobs depend on it. Now, in the time I have left, I want to talk about Brampton. I want to talk about Stellantis, the reason you've asked me to appear here today. In 2023, our union negotiated a commitment with that company, clear as day and black and white. The Jeep Compass program was coming to Brampton. In fact, 3,000 Unifor members ratified a collective agreement on that promise of the program coming to Brampton. And when ratifying that agreement, they knew that they would be out of work for a considerable period of time during the retool. I understand that very few of us could have foreseen in 2023 the disaster of a second Trump presidency and the weaponization of tariffs. I get it. This is all hard for everybody right now. But I'm going to be clear about something. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because commitments were made to workers, to our union, to this government, and to the people of Canada. And a deal is a deal. I want to say for the record that our union was blindsided by this decision. For 8 months, since the Brampton plant retool was paused, our union sought assurances. We demanded answers from the company because our members deserved answers. If a plan needed to change, then we could discuss it. We could problem solve. We could find ways to make it work, because we always do. All we ever received from Stellantis during that period was false reassurances. We were told in no uncertain terms that Stellantis was committed to Brampton and committed to the program, told over and over again. We were told this right to the very end, when apparently Stellantis at that time was no longer committed. You have to understand that to our members, this is a betrayal of the highest magnitude. To our membership, their collective agreement has now been violated and broken. 3,000 workers, 3,000 families, an entire community strung along for 8 long months. That plant has been retooling, and those workers have been without work since January of 2024. Stellantis says now that they want to move quickly, to get the Compass built and into showrooms. Yet by moving the program to the United States, it will only delay its production until at least 2027, whereas Brampton is almost ready to build right now. And that's why we are calling on the company to resume its retool immediately. This is the worst of corporate behavior, and it cannot be tolerated. There can be no situation where a corporation decides to cut production in this country ship our jobs to the United States, and expect a free ride back in Canada. This cannot happen. I want to take a moment to thank Industry Minister Joly and her team. The quick and decisive actions that they took last week, holding Stellantis to account for their actions and demanding a resolution in Brampton, was outstanding. Similar action was taken, as you know, with General Motors. I also want to thank our Finance Minister and his team for the notice that they sent the companies to reduce their tariff remission quotas. It was, in our opinion, the exact right move that was needed. We don't need corporate excuses. We need plans. We need products. We need commitments to be upheld. And everyone needs to learn that there are consequences to broken promises and broken commitments. As far as our union is concerned, that Compass program must stay right here in Brampton, where it was committed. We will be working toward that end, I can guarantee you that. And today, at this very moment, in Brampton, and tomorrow too, our members are outside that plant, standing up for their jobs, for their futures, and for their community, just as they are in Ingersoll. This is the fight of our lives, and we need our political leaders to be there with us each and every step of the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Payne. Okay, we're going to enter into our line of questioning. Mr. Gugelmin, the floor is yours for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to both the witnesses for their opening testimony. Mr. Volpe, your members represent 100,000 Canadian jobs. Without a question, the tariffs are the catalyst for the manufacturing sector, both auto and otherwise. We've heard testimony on this committee from numerous people associated with the manufacturing and auto industry who cite regulatory issues and tax framework and overall competitiveness issues vis-a-vis the U.S., especially given their aggressive approach to attract business through tax reduction strategy and regulation reduction strategy. So curious for you, how would you describe Canada's current competitiveness relative to the United States jurisdictions?
So removing tariffs from the conversation, I think that it's very competitive. Obviously, we're dealing with the last Trump administration's current one's approach to corporate tax benefits and the Biden administration's approach to flooding the zone with production subsidies. But in the packages that landed these investments, like the one that we're talking about from Stellantis and General Motors, I think there were good workarounds. And Canadians buy a lot of cars, up to 2 million a year. So it's also a very valuable market for profitable car companies to participate in.
Is the EV mandate making it harder for your members to justify new investment here?
Well, the EV mandate, which you may have heard me say from the beginning, that was unachievable and unworkable and not based in reality, although noble, is one of two things is going to happen. Companies were going to pour money into earlier programs that were less profitable to meet the targets, or they were going to have to buy credits from other companies that don't manufacture in Canada, like Tesla or VinFast, to meet the targets. Both of those were inefficient and would not result in more business for Canadian auto parts suppliers.
So would you say the EV mandates have caused some unintended consequences for the auto sector?
I mean, you can Google me on the record on that. I've been a lot less generous than you were there.
So you would agree with that for the record for this committee?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Do you believe in allowing consumers and industry to decide the pace of transition to EVs, and that sort of approach would strengthen the auto sector overall?
Well, there's a balance to be had. The Canadian economy has some benefits that come from some stretched goals in EV. They just have to be based in reality. And Canadians should be able to buy whatever they want. And I don't think up until this first year, 2026 of a 20% margin, we've offended that principle. We've implored the government to hold those mandates, review them and change them. They've done that. we are going to hold them to that very closely when the 60-day review period finishes, and there better be some changes.
Ms. Payne, at previous meetings that we had on Monday, we had executives from the auto industry here, and they kind of were highlighting a similar thing to Mr. Volpe regarding the EV mandates, that federal regulations such as that should be scrapped entirely and were a net negative to the auto sector. One of them went as far to say it was actually the one thing the government could do immediately to give immediate relief to the auto sector. We also heard something similar, some similar remarks from the president of Stellantis Canada. Would you agree with that assessment?
This isn't the reason that Stellantis is making the decision it's making right now. The other thing I would say...
Excuse me, ma'am, that wasn't the question. The question was with respect to the EV mandate. Do you believe that they should be scrapped and that would be a benefit to the auto sector?
My advice to the government is if they were going to scrap the EV mandate, which they've currently put on pause, that they should be getting something for it from these companies.
Because, yeah, you yourself...
Commitments that they need to live up to.
You yourself have said a mandate alone won't secure the Canadian EV industry, and we're talking here about trade policy, which has been a disaster for manufacturing. And at the end of every data point is a family, is a job at the end of the line, as I know you're very well aware. So if there was something we could do immediate, like get rid of this mandate, would you not agree we should take that approach?
I would say to you that you better get something for it. If you're going to get rid of the mandates, you need to get commitments from the companies that they're going to keep jobs here as a result.
So do you believe there should be enforceable job retention or clawback clauses written into these contracts the government makes with companies like Stellantis?
Yeah, I think with any kind of government support for any industry, whether it's the auto industry, whether it's the aerospace industry, no matter what you're talking about, that there should be strings attached to those investments, including jobs, including Canadian content, including all of the things that we should be demanding when we invest in industrial policy and in industries in Canada.
Just going off of your opening remarks, do you have confidence in what the president of Stellantis said regarding their desire to keep jobs in Brampton and in Canada?
Well, at this moment, I do not, and I will tell you why. Because they've just violated a commitment to us and have said that, they're shifting the product that was promised and committed to the workers of Brampton to a plant in the United States to appease Donald Trump's trade aggression. And there was not one word of commitment that I heard there in terms of whatever other product that they're talking about. We already have a product. We already have a committed product and vehicle program for Brampton. That's the one we need to keep there, and the retool needs to restart immediately.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all the time I have.
Thank you, Mr. Gugelmin. Madame O'Rourke, the floor is yours for 6 minutes.
Thank you. So we're all aware of the strength, the productivity, and the importance of Canada's auto sector. It's more than 100,000 direct jobs, more than 500,000 indirect jobs, and Ontario's top export. In Guelph, we are home to Linamar, Magna, and Denso, some of the world's best auto parts manufacturers. So I'm sure, Mr. Volpe, you've been to Guelph many times. We're also one of Canada's most vulnerable cities to tariffs. We all want to see Section 232 tariffs lifted. We all want renewal of CUSMA to be the priority. We should all want a Team Canada win on this. And we want to see Canadian automakers uphold their commitments. So Mr. Hines was talking about certainty, and he attributed the move to the U.S. To uncertainty caused by American tariffs. And are the actions of Stellantis themselves, does that move itself contribute to the uncertainty in the sector? Should they stand their ground, stand with Canada, the sector, and our auto workers?
I think it sends the message that if Stellantis can get away with this, everybody can get away with it. And we know that these kinds of decisions are being made in many places right now, and not just the auto sector. This is why our union was very propositional in the early days of this trade war and actually recommended to the government a remission plan in terms of how we would deal with production and manufacturing, particularly in the auto sector, in the face of the threats that we were facing. And that was based on a simple principle, and that is, if you sell in Canada, you should build in Canada. And if you have a footprint here and you've made commitments to working people here, and if you've made commitments around investments, that you would be given basically a quota. And if that footprint and those commitments changed, then that whole picture would change for you as a company. And that's what we saw evolve last week. And I get that this is tough to hear, but every day Donald Trump is pressuring corporations in the United States, I have used the word extortion, to do exactly what Stellantis is doing right now. And if we don't find a way as a nation to pressure back and make sure that we keep production in Canada, keep plants going during this period until we get to a point where we can get a trade deal and the kind of certainty that the president of Stellantis is talking about, then we will lose it all. And this is difficult for our members to hear. I have been honest with all of them about what it is we're currently facing. But the reality is we also have a lot of leverage as a country. We have a lot of ability to be able to secure the auto industry and make sure that we can get through this period. And we have to use all of those tools to do exactly that.
Thank you. As chair of the Auto Caucus, we've had opportunities to visit plants. We met with Unifor at the end of the summer. So this committee has a current study on productivity, right? So I'm imagining that establishing a new product in a factory would take years of planning, investments in retooling, training of the workforce. Does the Stellantis decision make any sense from a productivity standpoint this late in the game?
Absolutely none. What also doesn't make any sense is that, we've had a partial retool at Brampton. That plant is in a much better position to be able to complete the retool, get cars out the door, product out the door a lot faster, which if you've noticed and you've read their news announcement when they announced the $13 billion investment into the United States, which also included our jobs and our investment that had been committed to in Brampton, that they said they were doing this in order to make sure that they could get vehicles quickly into the market and into the showrooms. There's no better place to do that than Brampton right now.
I certainly hope Mr. Hines is still listening. For Mr. Volpe, I was happy to hear you say that our sector is anchored in assembly. I would agree. Can you give us an idea what the knock-on effects are for the parts manufacturers for a decision like Stellantis announced recently?
Well, I was pleased to meet with you and discuss personally with you these types of dynamics in Guelph at the Linamar Center for Innovation. And at that event, we talked about how a job in assembly is usually worth 3 or 4 in auto parts that feed that plant. When you make a car, it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle operation where 75% of those components are made at supplier factories. That in a plant like Brampton, when it's going at full hum and 3,000 workers that Lana represents are making the cars that I buy, there are about 9,000 or 10,000 workers at auto parts facilities that are making the components that go into that jigsaw puzzle. We were all waiting for that compass. And in support of the argument that Lana just made, let me add that $13 billion announcement included over $600 million for retooling Belvedere, Illinois. So in addition to the amount that was spent in retooling and icing workers and suppliers in Brampton, they're investing another $600 million into a product that has a 6 or 7% profit margin. So productivity is not the reason behind that decision.
Thank you, Chair Carr. Last question very quickly. The federal government has, of course, announced that it's taking action on Stellantis. We have also announced a number of supports for workers in a number of tariff-affected sectors, including enhanced EI, trades training, the Regional Tariff Response Initiative, which is $6.5 billion for new measures to protect Canadian businesses and workers, and of course the ongoing negotiations. So in your estimation, how critical is it to maintain these measures, and what actions, if any, can the Canadian government take to further stabilize the investment environment for the auto sector?
I'm never going to argue that we need to have robust supports for workers when they're facing job loss. But in this case, what I would say is our priority is to make sure people have jobs and to make sure that that plant operates. We do have many elements in our collective agreement, which obviously you heard Mr. Hines reference these. We have met with them around what continued benefits and income support for our members would look like. Let's just say we're nowhere near a solution to that yet. But the reality is that to stabilize the industry, there are a number of things we need to do, and that's to support production and make sure that we're keeping these plants open during this period of time, and obviously getting to a place where we can get a secure trade deal with the United States. But, you know, we have leverage here. Canada is a massive market. You heard Flavio speak to this, $100 billion market. These companies we're their main export outside of the United States in terms of where they sell their cars. That should be worth something. This is a critically important place for them, not only to build cars, but to sell cars. And I think that has to factor into the equation here and into the decision making.
Merci. Monsieur Saint-Marie, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for being here. Briefly to Mr. Volpe, of course, you are here representing the Automotive Parts Manufacturer Association, which I believe you represent 250 big companies in many parts, and 90% of Canadian auto parts manufacturers. But I didn't have actually how many jobs you represent in total. I know it was several thousand, but I didn't have
about 100,000.
100,000. That's a lot. Thank you very much for your advocacy on behalf of those workers. My understanding in Brampton, it certainly impacted 3,000 direct jobs, but there was I've heard as many as 12,000 indirect jobs, many of them in your sector, in the auto parts. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. When that plant is operating at full capacity, there's about 9,000 or 10,000 jobs in suppliers in that region and then in the rest of Ontario that supply that production. Those jobs without a car there do not exist.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to confirm that because it's a significant number of workers that you represent, so thank you for that. And Ms. Payne, similar questions to you. Of course, Unifor, as you well know, represents many auto workers. How many in general?
We have 40,000 members in the auto sector. They would work in assembly plants and also for some of the suppliers that Flavio represents. So when you speak about Stellantis and the Brampton decision, we also had about 1,000 members in the supply chain that were impacted by this decision, and then there would have been thousands more who potentially were not part of our union. So it's a significant impact.
Yes, and I believe in some of what I've read from what you said, and you may have said it today as well, but I think we can easily classify this as a crisis for our auto sector. And I am going to paraphrase what you said as well, and correct me if it's wrong, but I thought it was quite impactful. You said we will lose it all in terms of our auto sector if we don't get a trade deal.
I mean, I think there's many ways that we can do things right now. And we have worked with these auto companies through what has been a very difficult situation. Some of them are investing still in Canada. What I fear, and this is why we have been promoting the fact that this is an industry where a tariff is going to cause a continued loss of investment in the industry. So to your point, without the investment, without new product going into these plants, you don't have a future. Yes. And the investment right now is very limited and based on previous times. And we have seen a lot of new investment being announced, all of it going to the United States at this moment.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up the tariffs. Of course, this is a huge part of what we're dealing with, as many of you have outlined in this study that we're doing. I think what I'm quite concerned about is, and I'm sure you would agree, though, or I'm sure you've seen what I've seen, that the communications from the Trump administration are quite serious. They're in essence saying this is their goal. They want to bleed us dry of our auto sector. I'm paraphrasing their words, but that's my read of their goals. Pretty ruthless, and it's impacting thousands of jobs already, and we're only a few months in, so to speak. So, and I'm also concerned, though, that we aren't hearing a confident communication, anyway, from the Liberal government that they are going to deliver an auto deal for Canadians. We have not heard those communications. It has not been prioritized in their communications. So I'm very concerned that we are just at the beginning of this, and it's going to be quite some time, if ever, that we get an auto deal. So I think what we're trying to figure out is if there's anything that we can do within our domestic sole control to make the auto sector more competitive here, so we can hope to keep some jobs. And so I know that you mentioned on mandates previously regarding the pause. They were necessary given unprecedented challenges facing the domestic industry. This move provides temporary relief to an industry reeling from Trump's tariffs. I appreciate that you appreciate the temporary relief. I would argue that a permanent relief would do even more for some of the certainty that's required. And Mr. Volpe, I know that you've classified to the Toronto Star the mandate. You classified them as economic punishment, and we couldn't agree more. And we've heard this at length, Mr. Chair, from a number of witnesses about the EV mandates, and I really do believe they're like a noose hanging over the auto sector's head, and surely we can do something to help support them right now. And so I will move the following motion, Mr. Chair. Given that the federal Liberal electric vehicle mandate is currently paused but not repealed and may be reinstated following the government's ongoing review, given that the mandate reduces consumer choice and affordability with electric vehicles costing around $15,000 more than comparable gas models and winter range losses of up to 40%, affecting rural and northern drivers, does not reflect consumer demand, as electric vehicles made up only 8.7% of new vehicle sales in early 2025, a 23% drop from the previous year, is out of step with the U.S. market, where no comparable federal sales mandate exists, and automakers are given greater flexibility to meet consumer demand. Upon reinstatement, would require automakers to meet strict quotas, 60% zero-emission sales by 2030 and 100% by 2035, or face penalties of up to $20,000 per vehicle. Would once again channel millions in compliance payments to foreign companies like Tesla, instead of supporting Canadian automakers and jobs, and has been criticized by industry experts, including Hugh Williams of the Canadian Automobile Dealers Association, who called the EV mandate, quote, a pending disaster, and stated, if you want to help Tesla and not your local car dealer, keep the EV mandate. And Brian Kingston of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association, who called it, quote, a direct challenge to our competitiveness as an auto manufacturer jurisdiction, because it is levying punitive costs on companies that do not achieve these arbitrary sales targets. And that the committee report to the House its recommendation that the federal Liberal electric vehicle mandate be abolished. Mr. Chair, we feel quite strongly about this, and I look forward to the discussion.
So I'm just seeking some clarity from you, Madame Dancho. Are you moving notice, or you are moving the motion?
I'm moving the motion.
You're moving the motion. Okay. So, colleagues, I'm noting I've got three over here that'd like to speak. I'd like to make a recommendation to the committee, and should colleagues not accept that recommendation, that's fine. We'll abide by the standing orders. We have three witnesses with us. We have about 12 to 15 minutes worth of testimony left. If we get into a long, drawn-out discussion, or even a discussion of any kind on this motion, that is going to either prevent us from speaking to the witnesses further, or it is going to mean that the witnesses have to sit here, wait, listen to us deal with committee-related business that was not the reason that they were brought here today. So here's what I would like to recommend, that we allow for the line of questioning to continue, and that we agree with unanimous consent that we will honor the moving of Madame Dancho's motion, which we will engage on once we're finished our line of questioning, so that the witnesses that have availed themselves to us today can make the full use of their expertise known to us. And then following the conclusion of that, we will resume debate on this motion. In order for us to do that, I'm going to need unanimous consent from the membership. Yes, Madame Dancho.
How long will we have to discuss it?
We have to discuss it as long as there is to discuss it. So
There's no cutoff from the...
No cutoff whatsoever. All I'm suggesting is that instead of having what could be a 10, 15, 20, 60-minute long discussion with witnesses still here, let's finish the predetermined allotted amount of time out of respect to them and the members that still have time remaining, and then we agree as a committee that we will resume to the motion that you've moved.
I believe we had hands up here, so we may have a speaking order.
I will establish this. I will honor the speaking order that was attempted to be established here, which I have as Mr. Falk, Ms. Borelli, Mr. Gugelmin. I will resume that speaking order and commence it once we finish the allotted time we've set aside for witnesses. So I'm just looking for consent from the committee. Simply put, I don't want the witnesses to have to wait around while we have a discussion about this because they've made themselves available. Certainly, Mr. Volpe, Mr. DiCaro, and Ms. Payne have a lot on their plate, a lot of people to talk to, and I don't want to hold them up any further. Okay, then in that case, Madame Dancho, we will return to your motion upon the conclusion of questioning. Your time has expired. Mr. Bardisi, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I put a question to Mr. Hines about the productivity of the Brampton plant, and I'm wondering if Ms. Payne or Mr. DiCaro, you have some further comments or data to support with your views on the productivity of that plant.
Angelo?
Yeah, I don't. I appreciate the question. I don't know how detailed you want to speak on this, but it's fair to say, and I would imagine any Stellantis official would agree with me, that plant has been in operation for 40 years. It has been an exceptionally productive plant. They've entrusted that plant to build the vehicles that Mr. Volpe buys. But not just because Mr. Volpe is buying them, but because they are hugely profitable vehicles. That plant for a long time has been a sole source factory for some of the most lucrative muscle cars in the Dodge lineup. And they were very proud of building those cars. If you have seen a Dodge Charger within the last 20 years, it was only ever built in one facility in the world, and that's Brampton, Ontario. So you don't trust a bad plant to build your most important cars. And that's why that plant is so critically important.
I recall in the, thank you for that, and maybe just as a follow-up question, did the question of an electric vehicle availability standard ever get in the way of those chargers being produced?
I'll say no. No. The bigger issue, if I'm being honest, with product portfolios to meet electric vehicle or fuel economy standards stems from the U.S. EPA rules on fuel economy. Canada builds cars for the North American market. If they change the regulations in the U.S. for fuel economy, we follow those rules. That has had a more influential impact on the shift in production than any other policy that we're aware of. The Brampton lineup of cars was winding down before we were even having a conversation about EV mandates in Canada, frankly. So it's hard to test that against that policy. It's the best I can tell you.
After the restructuring of the sector in the aftermath of the financial crisis, there was significant government, federal government, Ontario government, and U.S. federal government assistance to two of the major companies. And as part of those assistance packages, your workers, your members had to take some significant, make some significant sacrifices. But I also recall in that period that there was a lot of alignment between Unifor and the sector to jointly advocate for new mandates. Can you just tell a bit of the story about how the sector was working together with the union for a long period of time, and perhaps what has changed just in the last few months?
I would say we still work together with the sector where we can, because we want to have a robust auto sector in Canada, and that means we work with automakers, we work with Flavio, we try to make sure, and his organization, we try to make sure that we can promote an auto sector for Canada, because it's so critically important. It's so critically important to having an advanced manufacturing base in this country. It's so critically important to the industrial base of Canada, and it's so critically important to 500,000 Canadians who depend on it for their employment. So we will find a time where we will work together again on all of the policies that we need to work on to make sure that we have an industry that is supported, that is able to grow, and I believe we will get to that place once we get through this difficult period. The reality is that we build cars together across North America, and the U.S. depends on us in order to be able to build the cars that they build there too, and they depend on our market. And eventually, I really hope saner heads prevail here, and we continue to have a great North American auto industry.
Thank you. A question for Mr. Volpe.
Very quickly, Mr. Burdizzi.
Mr. Volpe, Ms. Payne just spoke a bit to the role of Minister Joly and the industry folks in advocacy in these last few weeks. I'm just wondering if you could share your views on that advocacy from your perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Burdizzi. We asked the Minister of Industry to take a really firm stance on the covenants that Stellantis and General Motors had signed with the federal government to the benefit of both those companies, but also suppliers and workers and the communities alike. We thought the response was very firm and very quick. And in the remission order move, together with Minister Champagne, I think we've got the attention of decision makers there who are not happy about that. But I think it was a very important articulation of the leverage that we have, that Lana talked about, $100 billion market they sell into. Look, if you're going to get tariff remissions because you're building here and then you decide not to build here, then you're going to be like Nissan and Hyundai and everybody else that wants to sell here. And appreciate the very strong leadership and response in that matter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Monsieur Saint-Marie, 2 minutes 30 secondes.
Oui, merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Payne, Mr. De Caro, what lesson can the federal government draw from what happened in terms of how they're restructuring their industrial policy? Should the government require more guarantees for jobs or investment to protect workers and communities when they are taking some political steps to support the large enterprises in the manufacturing industries? What can the government learn to come up with better industrial policies in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, what I would say is that whenever we're hit with a moment like this where because we will always argue that government should have strong industrial policy and support sectors like the auto industry and the aerospace industry and make sure we're doing all of the things that we can do, that a modern nation must do that. But when you're in a moment like this, you should pause and look and examine what did we do, what can we do better. We should do this always. What policies can we improve upon? Can we strengthen the strings that are attached to the investments that companies receive? If so, what does that look like? So yeah, I would say that this is a good moment to look back at all of that and say, how can we improve? And maybe we can't. But it is worth a review and examination, and I think it's a responsible thing to do. And here.
Just one supplement on this, because I think it's a great question on the lessons we have to learn about building an industrial strategy. One thing I think, and I'm going to set aside the criticism and the opaqueness of the covenants struck. These are not public documents. I set aside the confidentiality implications of having these agreements. So we'll save that for another time. But the mechanisms that have been put in place, these very detailed, application-based funding mechanisms frustrate a lot of employers because it takes time and they have to sign a lot of paperwork to do these things. But it shows that this has actually proven useful because we have a stake now where we wouldn't have had a stake in a different policy formation. And I'll give you an example of that, and that is giving blanket tax cuts to companies. And the shift to investment tax credits within the EV approach that we've taken as a country, that comes with speed, it comes with efficiencies, it comes with a lot of risk because we cannot hold those companies to account like we are doing right now. So I think that's a lesson. That's a lesson that has to be taken, explored further, and I'm glad to see that this new Strategic Response Fund is taking a page from the Strategic Innovation Fund in its makeup, and we aren't going too deep into a different model of tax cuts without strings attached.
Je vous remercie beaucoup. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Pirelli, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Chair. Ms. Payne.
Is this to the motion?
This is the allotted amount of time.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Payne, please. Stellantis and other automakers have received record public subsidies. Do you think the federal and Ontario governments negotiated strong enough job retention clauses, or should future agreements include clawback provisions if employment promises are not met?
I haven't seen the agreements, so I mean, maybe you all have in camera, but I certainly haven't seen them. But I've been very clear that I think when we're looking at investing in any industry in Canada, that we have to look at having strings attached with respect to employment and making sure that we have Canadian content, all of the things that you would consider in terms of making sure that our economy gets the best of those investments.
Can you comment on how Unifor is working to ensure that skilled trades and women in manufacturing have equal access to the new Windsor battery plant jobs?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we do a lot of work in the skilled trade space, as you can imagine. We have about 50,000 of our members who are skilled trades and work in thousands of workplaces across the country. We negotiate skilled trades apprenticeships in many of our workplaces. We encourage and use in any ability that we can in terms of trying to make sure that women have access to those opportunities as well. For example, I just spoke to a number of our women skilled trades with our Suncor facility in Fort McMurray. So this is something that we do and work together on with employers. We've done this robustly with the shipyard in Halifax as well, where we've seen the number of women skilled trades increase by heaps and bounds because of the partnership between our union and the employer and government and colleges. So we do it across the spectrum. We use collective bargaining, obviously, as a tool to be able to do that. And we also have an education program in Port Elgin that we teach several times a year to introduce women to skilled trades and to make sure that we're doing that. And our locals do a tremendous job in the community, including your community of Windsor, to hold skilled trades fairs and make sure that women see that this is a place for them.
Thank you. For Mr. DiCarlo, based on your policy modeling, what long-term productivity or wage gains can Windsor expect from Stellantis EV transition, and what risks remain if demand for EVs underperforms?
I don't know how much modeling I have to share with you on this. I can give you just my assessment and analysis of it. I think you can take your question and you can expand that to any transitioning auto factory. There is a very unstable market right now, and part of it is consumer driven in early phases of what is going to be a very monumental and significant change in the technology of vehicles. So part of it is consumer-driven, but a lot of it is policy-driven, mostly from the United States. We have a president that campaigned to upend momentum in the electric vehicle market, which I will say, if I can be so bold, I think is maybe the biggest mistake and the biggest tragedy of this period right now that we're facing, because I worry we were already behind in this transition in the face of countries like China, who are far more advanced. And if we don't move forward, we'll be having a very different conversation, I think, at this industry committee in 15 years. And are we still building cars? Because it's a different landscape. So I worry about that quite a bit. I think for Windsor, the Windsor Assembly Plan has already made moves to address some of the market dynamics. They've resequenced their rollout of some of the charger EVs that they have. Now they're moving back into the gas-powered version. So I think they're adapting. But yeah, it's going to have some concerns that go along with that. But yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just add one point to this? Because one of the things that we did through collective bargaining is also to make sure we're looking at platforms in our plants that are flexible, so that you can produce ICE, you can produce full EV models or hybrids. And so really what you need are facilities that are putting in platforms that are able to shift based on shifts in the market demand. So the more flexible our workplaces are to be able to do that, the more you're able to adapt to market changes.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, no further question on your end?
I thought you said my time was up.
I just said very quickly, if you have something very quickly.
Mr. Volpe, Windsor's economy depends heavily on parts manufacturing, with thousands of jobs tied to Stellantis and feeder plants. What percentage of the Windsor-Essex supply chain currently stands to benefit directly from the Next Star project, and are local suppliers being prioritized in the procurement?
A very specific question. I don't have the exact percentage for you, but I would say it's a material amount. It's the most important local investment in assembly or major sub-assembly. The local suppliers are advantaged by being close to the plant. The logistics of supplying a facility like that means the biggest items that cost the most to move and ship are usually located close by. But I'm not sure that there's anything in their procurement strategy that says, hey, by the way, we've got to do Windsor-Essex suppliers first. And that's why it's important to note that those Windsor-Essex suppliers are extremely productive and efficient and aggressive in business development, because they need to be, and it's a dog-eat-dog world, and we've got a globally relevant cluster of suppliers there.
Thank you very much, Ms. Borelli. Ms. Sadhu, 5 minutes is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Payne and Ms. DiCaro,
you represent, and with how difficult of a moment we are in as a country, and certainly you are all on the front lines of this. So to make yourselves available to this committee on short notice and at a time where your attention and your energy is demanded in a variety of different places at the same time, we are extremely appreciative of the insight and the guidance you've provided us today. So thank you very much for that. Witnesses, you are dismissed. Colleagues, we are now going to, as committed, get into the motion that was moved by Madame Dancho earlier in the hour. I had as a speaking list Mr. Falk, followed by Ms. Borelli, followed by Mr. Guglielmin, followed by Mr. St. Marie, followed by Madame O'Rourke. Mr. Falk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank my colleague Ms. Dancho for putting forward this motion, and I think she's clearly given the rationale as to why this motion should be adopted by this committee. And I just want to, for those people watching committee, reiterate what the ask is without rereading the entire motion. And the ask is very simple, that the committee report to the House, that being the House of Commons, that it and is recommendation that the federal liberal electric vehicle mandate be abolished. And you know, if we go back in time a little bit to 2021, when Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government first announced their plan for an EV mandate, is when things actually began to happen, and the Liberal government obviously didn't do their homework properly and didn't realize what the impact of an electric vehicle mandate would do to the auto industry here in Canada. And I think today we're seeing the fallout of that. Multiple witnesses at committee have told us that a substantial impact on the decision that Stellantis will have made in shutting the Brampton plant and moving production of the Jeep Compass to Illinois was the fact that there was an EV mandate here. And instead of giving Elon Musk billions of dollars in carbon tax offset credits, and for those that follow the industry a little bit, last quarter, Tesla received $700 million or $600 million in carbon tax credits from other automakers, and the quarter that we just came through, or prior to that, was $700 million. That's over $2 billion a year the industry is giving to Tesla. That's leaving Canada and padding the pockets of Elon Musk. I think the necessity of this motion is also brought on by the fact that Prime Minister Carney, his ministers, Minister Joly, Minister Champagne, Minister LeBlanc, have failed to negotiate tariff relief with the United States government. They've failed to negotiate, and every time that they actually seem to communicate with the Americans, things seem to get worse here in Canada. You know, when they tried to implement a counter tariff, that lasted about 48 hours. When they tried to bring in a tax on the tech giants, that lasted less than 24 hours. What we see over and over again is Prime Minister Carney backing down to President Trump. And every time it seems to cost us more money. But after the last visit that Mr. Carney had with President Trump, we see that he came back having made a $500 billion investment commitment into the United States, knowing that $60 billion of capital had already fled our company into foreign markets. And then he promised Donald Trump a $500 billion or $500 billion investment in the United States coming from Canada. He should be worried about Canadian investment, not investing in the United States. And yesterday we learned that the only winner from this last visit was Brookfield, $80 billion contract, 2 weeks after our Prime Minister visits with President Trump. Wow, that's a big thank you to Canadians and to Canadian auto workers. Conservatives stand strongly in the corner of the Canadian auto workers, with the workers of Stellantis that were anticipating that they would have a plant reopening, that they would be producing the Jeep Compass. For years and years, they produced the hallmark muscle cars of the Stellantis brand, the Dodge Charger, the Dodge Challenger, excellent products, and the workers were extremely proud. And while we sat here in committee listening to testimony, I looked up on Google and I Googled a picture of the employees standing beside the last Dodge Challenger that was made in the Brampton plant, which was a Dodge Challenger Demon 170 black, total black car. And the workers stood around there and they took pictures and they applauded and they celebrated the workmanship of that plant in producing a phenomenal muscle car. And these were proud auto workers, proud of the work they had done, proud of the product they had produced, and they should be. And now they're faced with this. And why are they faced with a robocall advising them that they wouldn't have work? Because this Liberal government failed to deal with the trade situation that we have with the United States. They failed to get any elimination of the tariffs. They failed to get any concessions. This wasn't a decision that was made last month by Stellantis. This was a decision, as we heard from President Hines from the Stellantis. We heard from him that he had been in discussions with both Unifor and the Liberal government the last 9 months. This wasn't a decision that was made overnight. They had 9 months to come up with a solution, and the Liberal government failed. And now there's 3,000 workers in the Stellantis plant that are looking towards Christmas and wondering how they're going to make that a celebration for their family. This isn't fair to those auto workers. This isn't fair. This Liberal government has hugely failed them, and they need to make things right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Falk. Ms. Borelli, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, I want to be clear right from the start. This motion is not about opposing electric vehicles. Conservatives support innovation, consumer choice, and Canadian-made technology. What we do oppose is the federal Liberal EV mandate, a policy that punishes workers, families, undermines our manufacturing competitiveness, and threatens the livelihoods of thousands of Canadian auto workers, particularly in Windsor, the heart of Canada's automotive industry. We heard it loud and clear from our witnesses. The average electric vehicle costs $15,000 more than a comparable gas-powered vehicle. As Hugh Williams told this committee just days ago, and I quote, "It's a pending disaster." And he's right. This mandate doesn't help the average family. It helps foreign corporations and the ultra-wealthy who can afford a $70,000 car and a home charging station. When the government tells automakers what to build, instead of letting consumers decide what to buy, the result is simple. Fewer cars on lots, fewer choices, and higher prices. That means more families priced out of owning a vehicle altogether. In Windsor, where our local economy was built on auto manufacturing, this mandate represents...
All right, gang, not to run out of steam, but I'm coming close to running out of steam. But I've got a video that I want to show, but first I'm going to explain very quickly how this ended. After Kathy Borelli speaks here, the first Liberal, O'Rourke, that lady that was speaking earlier, she calls the meeting to adjournment, and they just end it, and it's over. That's how it ends. But I've got this video here. This is Mark Carney head-to-head with...
See on the flag? Great session. We should smile.
We'll get it ready.
And the Australian as well, 13 billion. Yeah, love it.
This is Trump and Carney going head-to-head.
President, hey, good to see you. Nice to see you. Please move. Prime Minister. I'm meeting with President Xi tomorrow morning, and then I go 3-hour meeting, 3-4 hours. Go home.
And then he does Halloween on that.
He doesn't do Halloween. Can you believe it? We're going to have that.
Well, we really appreciate that you're coming to KL and take all the honor.
Well, it's an honor. Yeah.
Showing your commitment.
We have a big commitment to everyone here.
You got a
big commitment to everyone.
The ASEAN line is very well. Japan.
That was a great meeting. They're all great. This was a great meeting. We had a fantastic. We had a fantastic
New Zealand meeting in particular.
You were just saying that was the highlight of the whole. I was there many years ago. I never forget. New Zealand, such a beautiful place. Yes.
Thank you very much for your participation as heads of states. It is a great pleasure to be able to meet you at this table. President Trump has joined us today. We are all allies and friends of the U.S. The whole world is faced with multiple challenges, and in these times, collaboration and cooperation among states is more important than ever before. This is indeed a rare opportunity for us to gather. I hope it will be a great opportunity to listen to your great insights. In particular, President Trump has joined us, and I do believe that it is very significant. As the host, I would like to wish each and every one of you prosperity and also world peace. Let me raise a toast. For world peace and collaboration between states.
그리고 저는 아주 짧은
I would now like to turn the floor to President Trump for his remarks.
Hello. So I'd like to thank everybody. I know you all either reasonably well or very well. And we had a tremendous meeting today with South Korea. I think the meeting was a lot was determined, very much determined, and we made our deal. We pretty much finalized a trade deal, and we discussed some other things having to do with national security, etc. And I think we came to a conclusion on a lot of very important items. We had a terrific meeting in Japan also, and we concluded a trade deal, a very big one, a very big trade deal. And I always say good for both countries. I think it really is great for both countries. But I just wanted to thank you. You rolled out a red carpet that was a very good, beautiful red carpet, and giving me the honor of that magnificent piece of art, because it really was a piece of art that you presented to me today. And to be the first president of the United States that got that was really something very special. So I appreciate it very much, and I won't forget the trip. And we'll be working together, and you have a little bit of a cloud over your country, and we're going to get that cloud solved. You have a neighbor that hasn't been as nice as they could be, and I think they will be. I know Kim Jong-un very well, and I think things will work out very well. Tomorrow I meet with President Xi of China, and I look forward to that. And we've been talking a lot over the last month, and I think we're going to have something that's going to be very, very satisfactory to China and to us. I think we're going to I think it's going to be a very good meeting. I look forward to it. Tomorrow morning we meet. And then I go back to the United States, and then I go around the United States, and the same thing happens, but we're doing very well. Our country is doing phenomenally well, better than I think it's ever done. We hit new highs in the stock markets, all of them. Every market's hit new highs, and they have, I think, 48 times since I've been 9 months. We've hit 48 times we've hit new highs, and many of you are investors in the United States. From the standpoint of stocks, you put a lot of money in our stocks, so you're doing very well. I'd like to congratulate you. In some cases, you've doubled your money in about a year, and I'm very impressed with you. Your voters are very impressed with you. But we've done amazingly well. I don't think there's ever been anything like it, and we're over 17 trillion, probably up to $18 trillion of investment. In the last 4 years of the last administration, there were less than $1 trillion. And we're over 17 trillion. We're close to 18. I think we're going to be 21 or 22 trillion by the time I finish my first year. And in history, there's never been anything like that for any country, not even close. And part of that is the national security, given to us by the tariffs, properly used tariffs, very properly used. And other countries, as you know, have used them against us, but we never chose to use them very much. And we should have. And it's made a big difference. Our country is thriving. I think we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And a year ago, we were a very troubled nation, but we're not anymore. So I just think it's an honor to be with you. You've all done a fantastic job. You're fantastic leaders. We had a great meeting a week ago. You came all the way, and now you came here. But this isn't quite as far. This time I traveled far. But you've done a fantastic job. And we're working together on rare earths, but we're working on a lot of things together, and it's all working out very well. But I just want to thank you for your hospitality, Mr. President. It's been great, and it's an honor, and we'll be back, and we'll see you again. And thank you very much.
All right, gang, we're wrapping it up. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe. Come and join us tomorrow for our live question period. It's a lot of fun. We do a pre-show now. We've got a lot of great things that we'll be watching. Those committee meetings, I find those investigations so interesting every time. Well, not every time, but very often. So sometimes I'll get into a boring one for a live video because you don't know always what you're going to watch. But when I make the other videos, the regular ones, they're usually pretty spot on. Anyhow, that's it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Hope you all had a good time. And like I say, we're back tomorrow for a question period. We do a live show or a pre-show before that. And that is it. Thank you all so much for watching, tuning in. Have a good evening. We are out for now. We're just closing. There is no outro on this one. We're wrapping up. Thanks again, everybody. Kirk, everyone else, have a good night. That's it. We're out.